Okay, maybe we can get started. I see some people I don't know, so I'll introduce myself and then introduce the speaker. I'm Stu Schneller, and professor of chemistry and biochemistry. And there's a little bit in the way of background as to how I became acquainted with Mark. About a year ago, I decided, because I'd been teaching organic chemistry since I came to the department, and I thought maybe I could generate an Ibook primer for organic chemistry so that when the students came into, whether it's the first semester, the second semester, or the short organic, I would be able to provide them the background that I wanted them to have. I didn't want to make any assumptions, but I didn't want to reteach them. So I got the idea of getting involved with an Ibook or an EPUB primer. So that's sort of how I got started, and I've used it now a bit, and the students read it, and then I give them a quiz, which counts extra credit points after the first week that they've read it. So then I don't have to, I don't have to go back and define certain things. Well, not too long ago, I became acquainted with Mark's through Asim Ali, his organic chemistry lab book that was done in the iPad format. And so we communicated back and forth, and the more I heard from him, the more excited I got, and talking to some colleagues in the department and across campus, the more it gained inertia. And I said, well, maybe we should have Mark come to Auburn and tell us about what he has been doing with EPUBs, Ibook, and his role as the executive director of the Teaching Center, or Excellence Teaching Center at Oklahoma. So that's a little bit of background of how Mark got here. I'll tell you a little bit about Mark. He got his undergraduate training at Tarleton State, which is in Texas, Stephenville, Texas, if I remember. And then his PhD at Oklahoma. He did a postdoc in Florida, and he is an organic chemist. Polymers, I believe, is what he got his training in. He began his academic career at Georgia Southern, and then from there to Texas A&M at Corpus Christi, and then to University of Oklahoma, where Mark has been since 2006. He is associate professor of chemistry there and has continued until probably very recently his new appointment as this executive director that I'll mention, teaching the large organic chemistry classes. So he's been in the classroom and knows the students and what the students are like. And I think all of us will agree the students are changing dramatically in how you engage them today than maybe they were as recently as 10 years ago. I'm just going to read a little bit about what Mark's doing now that I think allows some connectivity with his presentation today. He's leading this One University digital initiative, and One University youth. Okay, One University Digital Initiative. So it's an initiative at Oklahoma University, University of Oklahoma. And part of the task is to make faculty aware of alternatives to save students money. Books, I mean, science books are off the graph now. We're looking at organic books, some of our colleagues the last couple of weeks. But at the same time, to allow faculty to tailor their classes for the way they want them to be. Now, when we get a textbook, and most of us like to stay close to the textbook so that the students can follow along and review that, but we find out after a while, maybe there's certain ways we can tailor our courses through this new electronic medium that is now coming about. And I think that's one of the many things that Mark is doing in his role as the director of OU Center for Teaching Excellence. And he will have, there's a number of other things he can talk to us about if we want to afterwards. Some open educational resources and technology integrated active learning. I think we're doing easel now, some of my colleagues. And so with all that said, but I also like to say that he has started their honors first year research experience for students within the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. And I went to a reception yesterday, I think some of you were there, for the honors faculty and talked to the new honors director. And this is exactly the same kind of thing I think she would be interested in, and I want to talk a little further about also how we can get that going in chemistry. Without further ado, you've heard enough from me. I know you're here to hear Mark Morvant. And the title of his talk is Digital Content to Engage Students, Organic Chemistry Laboratory, iBooks, and iPad, and a large lecture course. So, Mark, we're glad to have you over. Look forward to talk. Thank you.
Thank you for the nice introduction. When we think about education and think about how we communicate from one generation to another, there's always been things that we've had to accommodate. Now you can say that what we are looking at recently is a little bit more dramatic. So one aspect to think about is communicating what we're doing and what we've learned in the research labs and what we are learning every day has always taken this kind of generational. But for those of you in my age range, most likely you had a bank book. And in that checkbook, that bank book, you wrote down every time you wrote a check. Okay? For the generation that's coming forward, I'd like you to ask some of them, and there's a few in here, anybody below the age of 25 in the room that actually started out with a checkbook? 1, 2. How many did not ever have a checkbook? Okay. Not a lot. Okay? Bad example. I've got to always be careful when you do that in the classroom. Have a rebound. So if we look here, right, this is one of the things to think about, is that something very, very important like checkbook information, right? How much money I have in the bank. That is something that all of us used to write down, and we probably knew in our mind how much money was in our bank account. We had to. You're going to write a check, it might bounce. But today, students, some of them can access that information at a fingertip on their smartphone and may never have ever actually kept a checkbook. Now, how important is that information? How much money you got in the bank? Now, compare that to grades. When you hand back that exam 1 in organic chemistry, are they going to remember what that exam grade was 2 or 3 days afterwards? Shoot, when they leave the classroom. They retain, they work with things much different than we did, even when we think about this little bit of data. They also are really great about integration and about looking at information. We did a survey based on a national survey at the University of Oklahoma, and this is what we found. Our students' own devices, 98% had laptops, 87 phones, 41% tablets, and 23, if we look nationally, OU had a lot of tablet ownership, okay? 41%. If we look then at the national, when we look at what they're expecting in the classroom, the students want to be able to look up information, photograph, access digital resources, record my instructors, participate in activities. But if we look over here at the banned, discouraged, and encouraged, notice smartphone use in classrooms almost totally banned. Well, the students are asking to use this technology. They want to engage. They don't see it as a distraction to look up a word they just didn't understand in class on Wikipedia while you're talking, right? They see that as just an extension. If we look at some other data, if we look at the effective use of technology, and I'll need to read this one for you, feel that of their instructors, effective use of technology impact their academic success, right? So this one is 22% believe that their faculty is benefiting their academic success. If we look at are more involved in courses using technology, 63% say they are more. So if we're not using technology, they're not as engaged in the course. And then finally, feel that it is important that the instructors use new cutting-edge technologies, 82%. So these are what the students are saying, both University of Oklahoma, but nationally. And I imagine if you did a survey at Auburn, you'd find something very similar. Maybe not as high tablet use, but you'd find what they want to do is engage. Often we see pictures and students are texting and they're at a party. Over the last 3 years, I've come to believe that those students don't see that as disconnected. What they see is that the digital and the in-person are integrated. They don't see that separation. They don't see it the way we might see it. So at the University of Oklahoma, with this information, looking at these digital natives, these new students, how are we going to reach them? How are we going to engage them? How are we going to get them to be able to solve the problems of the future? David Boren, president at the University of Oklahoma, wrote a letter to the faculty and said, in this digital age, an OU education can be more unique, more individualized, and more powerful than ever by bringing digital alongside the community-based education, the traditional education that OU is known for. This led to the One University Digital Initiative, utilizing technology and digital content to enhance the student experience. The goals: offer savings to students through cost-effective options, to traditional learning materials, enhance learning experience both inside and outside of the classroom, support the public mission of the university by providing free educational open content, and build upon the university's sense of strong community to utilize technology to better connect its members. So what does that mean? Big goals, big initiatives. What do we do with that? The one thing that we discussed when we talked about the digital initiative is that the status quo is the only place we don't want to be. We want to be moving forward and we want to be experimenting. University of Oklahoma, like Auburn, is a research university. So therefore, we want to be experimenting in the future of learning. We want to be looking in the directions that we need to be looking in to see where the next path forward is. We've all done research in lab where it didn't go the way we wanted. But we don't stop experimenting. We just keep moving forward. Here are the things that we're doing with the One University Digital Initiative. Textbook alternatives. We use that as a broad term. That could be open educational resources. Two of the major providers of those is Connections and Merlot. Could be digital content, iBooks, and that's one of the main things I'll be talking about today. And OpenStax College. OpenStax College is from Connections. It provides full textbooks. They have the goal to provide all of the commodity textbooks for free that are used at universities. Besides these, you also have California that's going to, state-funded, provide 50 free textbooks, and British Columbia that's going to provide 40 free textbooks. iPads in the classroom. Don't forbid those devices, utilize those devices. Bring the information of the world into your classroom with iPads. Have interactions in your classrooms that are enabled by the iPads. Open courses. This is part of getting content out. The platform that we helped develop with NextThought, a startup in Norman, Oklahoma, was JanX. Also, technology integrated active learning classrooms. I've learned that y'all are also moving in that direction. We started with one, the core. It was very successful. We had some faculty go through that. We built two more. Those are fully utilized. We have over 40 faculty using our active learning technology integrated classrooms, flipped instruction, digital scholarship, and then iPad app and tutoring. So I'm going to focus on those top three in today's presentation. Why textbook alternatives? Integration of media and interactivity into the course materials. They're not separate. You don't have the movie over here, you don't have the textbook over here, you don't have the homework assignment or the self-assessment over there. Integrate those. Ability to customize the course material to the curriculum. Increasing cost of textbooks. 186% increase in textbook costs from 1986 to 2004. In the past 3 years, the average amount of college students have used on textbooks goes from $900 to $1,300 per year, and at 8.1% from July 2011 to July 2012. And finally, update the material when you feel it is appropriate to update the material. In a general chemistry class, that's probably not every 3 years. But in other areas, it might be every 6 months. Now, what are the advantages for faculty? Create the curriculum that you want to teach, not the curriculum that was created to gain the largest adoption rate. Have you looked at some of the chemistry texts available? Are the chapter outlines that different? Maybe they have 26 chapters, maybe they have 24. But if you look at them, all of the publishers are creating the same basic curriculum. Make changes in your courses on your schedule, not every 3 years when a new edition of the text comes out. And finally, important for Auburn, important for University of Oklahoma, and important for every R1, what we do is going to be in the textbooks of the future. Why don't we put it in our curriculum today? Why don't we put in those highlights of what our faculty are doing so our undergraduates understand the importance that you're doing in the labs with your graduate students? Advantage for students: course materials in multiple media formats, text, video, interactive, that can be better engage the students' interest. Course materials in a mobile format that can be with the student on their mobile devices at any time. And cost savings. One faculty member in one section of sociology adopted the OpenStax Introduction to Sociology textbook. One section of one course saved the students $112,000 a year. These are real savings for our students. When you think about a student buying a textbook, if they're buying a $200 textbook and they had the minimum wage that President Obama would like us to have, that's 20 hours of work to buy one textbook. Most of our students aren't buying the textbooks. And so it's a question of access. Will they succeed in a chemistry class if they do not have access to the course materials? So with that, we wanted to investigate creating some open educational resources, some engaging resources, and of course, creating content takes a lot of time, but luckily, we had the lab manual. Almost every university has lab manuals they've created because you want to customize it to your university. So it was an easy thing to do. Another easy step to make to go digital is to take a course packet, convert that to digital. So this is what we did. We converted the lab manual that myself and Dr. Halterman wrote back in 1994 into the Ibook. We inserted videos for direct instruction of techniques. We had a link to MSDS and other information so that the students could get that information directly out of the Ibook. And we embedded self-assessments to allow the students to engage in the material. With that, I'm going to try and pop over to the book. And as with all technology, this may not go well. So here is the Ibook. So you can see it here on my library. Not yet? Mirror screens. Thank you. Like I said, technology. Is that good? Almost. We're almost there. Ah, there we go. So this is the iBook. This is chapter 7. If we go through chapter 7, you can see here it's a normal iBook, but instead of one image in a textbook, now we have a couple. We have the data tables. We have the MSD sheets. If I could get on the wireless, I could click that, and you can see that. You've got a little table here to fill in. We've got a video. The video is thin layer chromatography. I'll just play a little bit of it. It starts right in there. And the idea we had with these videos is the videos are very specific but general. We're not trying to show you how to do the entire lab. We're just trying to show you that small part of the lab. That part of the lab where a TA would normally have to get up in front of the class and demonstrate that. Well, that's direct instruction. These are just follow me type instructions. This isn't deep cognitive stuff. This is, here's the jar, here's how you put it in, here's the thing. It's straight, right? They can watch this in video. Now they can watch it on here before they get to class. We use the equipment we use. We put little warning symbols up to tell them, hey, this is where most students make all the mistakes, right? And it's in their iBook, right? Not wait till you get to class and I'll tell you what I meant by that sentence. Here, I'll show you what I meant by that sentence. We had pictures of the actual, what is it going to look like? Another video, and then some very simple, not very difficult, but some self-assessments. Hey, did you read the assignment? More engaging than what we had previously. The student feedback is very positive. They like the fact they can do that. And what does it mean pedagogically for me as an instructor? Now, instead of having to tell my TAs, you need to show them how to do crystallography, you need to show them how to put a column chromatography, I can have the TAs say, okay, what you're going to do this week is you need to talk to them about the polarity phenomenon and why compound A is going further and compound B is not. Or why, when you change the polarity of solvent, you don't actually change the direction of compound A and compound B, right? Deep thoughts. This, whenever we're looking at chemistry, these are the questions we want our students to be able to ask. Do we ask them on our final exam, where did you put the TLC plate in the jar? No. They had to do that to do the experiment, but we really wanted them to get to deeper stuff. That's, every time I show you one of these videos, every time you think about having an online video resource, that's what I want you to think about. What did we just free up in class now that I can get them to think deeper about their content? We didn't stop there. We went 2 other courses, physical chemistry and biochemistry. Now, the organic book, that was mine. Dr. Halterman graciously allowed us to create it, a free iBook. You can go download it for free on the iBook store. But we also wanted to do PChem. PChem had an assortment of papers that they used, but it wasn't really a manual. It had never been put together. And so we paid for a TA to do that, and he did it. He created an iBook. With the biochem laboratory manual, the TA and the faculty member did it without any resources from the Center for Teaching Excellence. All we did was when they got stuck, they gave us a call, we helped them out. These can be done without a lot of additional resources. Now the biochemistry one, we hired a VisCom student, one of OU's top-notch graphic design students, to help it make it look a little splashy. Yeah, we paid a film student, undergrad, to help us with the videos, right? But if you look at these other 2 books, and the biochem book will be in the iBook store soon, right? These were things that faculty and graduate students created on their own. The technology is to the point now that these can be done with basic computer skills. May not look as fancy as these, but getting it in there is like using word processor. One of the other things about open educational resources, and one of the things I did back in 2006 when I started at OU, was I podcasted my videos. And this is where I first saw the power of open. So I put all my lectures, podcasted them, anybody in the world could watch them for free, put them online. Within 2 years, I had 60,000 views. I only had 300, now that's a lot, 300 students a semester, that's a lot. But 300 a semester is not 6,000 students, 60,000 students. So 60,000 students were watching that content. So we created the iBook for the Organic Chemistry Lab Manual. We have about 600 students in the course a year. So far, we've had 480 students in the course. We had 1,389 downloads from over 30 countries. Here are the top countries. We got a whole class adoption in Japan, lots of students using it in Australia, not so many in France and Switzerland, but there may be a language barrier. The other thing we did at the University of Oklahoma is some iPad pilots. We wanted to see, is this really a paradigm shift? Can we do things in the classroom with iPads that we could not do without the iPads? Our biggest iPad pilot was in the Rainbow College of Education. All pre-service teachers received an iPad. The faculty received those iPads the semester before, and they developed their content around those so that the faculty could get comfortable. We did a rollout with over 300 iPads. The students took to it like you wouldn't believe. But most of those students are going to be going into the K-12 area where many school districts are doing full adoptions of iPads or tablets. Because in K-12, it makes a lot of sense because an iPad, for even $500, is going to be cheaper than the course materials for that student for 1 year. We also did an iPad pilot in our Action Center, that's our Student Learning Center. There we wanted to have a class set. So we got a faculty member that has 24 students, 30 students. We want to give them an opportunity to try that out. So we have a class set there. We've had several faculty take advantage of that. We did study abroad pilots, Brazil and Road to Rushka. Rushka was an artist that took pictures along Highway 66. So Highway 66 is close to Norman, Oklahoma. So students followed that and they watched. They used it for both their course materials, but also to collect information. An iPad has a camera, right? And they created an Ibook, in the case of the Brazil, as the output of that course. And then last fall, we did a new faculty boot camp. We gave the new faculty an iPad, told them you can have this for the semester. Let's see how it goes. And what we saw was that, yes, some of them used it for teaching. Most often what they used it for teaching was flexibility. Sometimes I can do it wirelessly and I could be out and walking around. I could hand it to somebody and say, please answer this question. Let's put it on the board. Sometimes it was an innovative app that they wanted to show in class. If you haven't seen Molecules on the iPad, you should look at it. So there were lots of potentials there. But the thing that was really surprising was how many came back and said, it changed the way I did research. It changed the way I communicated with my graduate students. It changed the way that I kept track of my literature review, or how I put my manuscript together, or how I networked with my fellow colleagues across the nation. Now, one of the pilots that we did was the Action Center. We used the iPad in organic chemistry lab. Now, one of the things you can do with the iPad that you can't do with the laptop is you can draw on it. So there's a lot of whiteboard type apps. So Explain Everything is a great one that you can also videotape. Pen Ultimate is the one I use. Notability, the students like because you can record voice and take notes. And so what we did was Ron Halterman actually had this idea. He took that class set of 30. He was teaching Organic 2 with about 100 students, and the students worked in groups. We have a large lecture room, 250, where on each platform there's actually 2 rows. And the first table can turn around and face the back. So you can have a nice active learning in a large enrollment class. With this, he would select an answer, he would have them work in groups, and then he would go around and find an answer and then project that wirelessly on the screen, and then the class would have a discussion about it. You know, this is an interesting, sometimes students come up with creative ideas in organic chemistry, especially Organic 2. They weren't where you were looking for, but they actually aren't that bad. Now, in the lab they might not work, right? But they can help you discuss some in-depth concepts. So use the iPads to facilitate the class discussion and the engagement. Again, in this case, right, what it helped was to build in an interaction in the classroom, especially being able to show what the students were actually doing and creating in their answers up to everybody so that you could have a classroom discussion. Last aspect I want to talk about here is JanX. This is a social learning platform. OU partnered with NextThought to create a social learning platform to offer open courses. access to OU course content anywhere, anytime, to create and share notes with peers in a multi-rich environment, and for courses with for-credit courses with public versions. So we created several courses, 20 courses at this time on the JANX platform, 2 in chemistry. 1 was in general chemistry. We created a supplemental materials. You couldn't call it a complete course, but a solid supplement to our general chemistry with videos and a full open textbook that matched the curriculum of the course. Over 600 OU students utilized the resource, and many commented on the fact that they used the resource instead of buying the $250+ textbook. The other course, this is my course, Chemistry of Beer. It's a fun course to teach. It's actually a 4,000 level 1 hour credit course. Special topics, we do have OU students in it for credit. It's an online for those students. But we also have over 8,000 students taking it as open students. These students will not receive credit from OU, but they can get to all the same content, they take the same quizzes, they have the same interaction. And again, the impact, 90 countries. We used all open educational resources to create this, so not only is it open content, it is free, totally free. You do not have to buy anything. You have an email address, you can take this course. Interesting fact about this one. You know, I expected it to be popular. Chemistry of Beer, popular. 8,000, a little surprising. What's really surprising is the number of students in there that have no background in chemistry at all. Some of them out of the classroom for 40 years. The number of professional brewers that are taking the course. And the number of PhD chemists and microbiologists that are in the course. As a person that loves teaching, here's the really great thing about this one. If I'm in this class, right now, who is the expert in the class? I am. I went and visited a small college, had a full ride there. I met with the chemistry faculty member. Notice I said the chemistry faculty member. We were driving back from that small college, talking to my dad. I said, I'm not really, you got any advice, Dad? And he said, after 4 years, you'll know everything that he knows. Well, in this chemistry of beer course, we got professional brewers. We have professional chemists, all in here. And the nice thing about the social learning platform is when you get into the content, you can ask a question in the textbook. You can ask a question in the video. It's not only my answer, it's the answer for the professional brewers, and it's the answer from the other professional chemists. So my students at OU don't have one expert, they have dozens of experts. So when they ask a question, right, they get lots of voices. They get lots of knowledge. Our students are changing. Our environment is changing. What we need to do is think about how to engage that new population, how to reduce the burden on those students, but also give ourselves the freedom to create the courses we love. Now, you can't do this by yourself, so I'd like to thank the graduate students. Austin worked on the organic book, Dan worked on the PChem book, Logan worked on the biochem book. Undergraduate students made everything look wonderful. CTE staff, faculty, Ron Halterman, Paul Sims, Wee Yip. Adam Chrome is the director of the digital courses. And then, of course, you never do a university-wide digital initiative by yourself. There's lots of people involved in this. Information technology, Webcom, University Library, Student Learning Center, the Provost Office, and the President's Office. And, of course, Apple makes wonderful products. They got a great user interface. They're very stable. And NextThought worked with us on creating the social learning platform, JANX. With that, I will stop and take any questions. Yes, sir.
Your program of handling out these iPads, so you have a choice of the Wi-Fi or the cellular phone style. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so far we've only been doing the Wi-Fi. So there's one basic. Now we have started looking at storage options. So on the study abroad, what they really need there is to load everything on it before they go. And so depending on those, sometimes we'll raise the storage option, but most of them all go Wi-Fi. And in most cases, that's not a problem. Faculty opt for cellular when they're given an option.
Yeah, could you tell us a little bit about the software you use to develop a course on the iPad?
Ibook Author is the program that you use to create iBooks. It's a straightforward interface. It has simple templates. If you can use if you can use Word or PowerPoint, you can really create something there. It's made around the iWorks suite, and so you can if you know how to use any of those, it's straightforward to learn the iBook Author. You can also import things directly from Word, and so if you have content, like we have the source files for all of those lab manuals, to get those content in there, it was really straightforward. Then it was just, where do we want to put the image? Which template do we think looks better? And then the assessments are widgets that you just select. I want to do a multiple choice. I want to do a carousel. They really are plug and play. It's very easy. We ran 36 faculty through iBooks training last spring, and we had another 40 do a long, extensive program from August until February this last year. It's very straightforward. It's the nice thing about the platform is, again, technology is becoming easier, creating videos. On the iPad, you can create a nice video with use Edu Creations. And the one that we recommend is Explain Everything, to create quick videos. So, especially in chemistry, sometimes you need to show them. And so you can talk on it and draw it, do the math problems right there and hit a button and email it to them. Or hit a button and put it on your learning management system. Yes, ma'am.
Were you able to figure out if student performance increased or remained the same or something like that?
Yeah. We haven't finished any of those studies. So what we got from the students were a couple of things. Not all of our students have iPads. And so with the 3 different chemistry books, the PChem book and the Biochem book, those videos are mostly on YouTube. And so it's a little different interface when it's on YouTube. It's not as easy, slick as when it's in iBooks, but then everybody can get to it. With the iBook for the organic lab, the videos, we never closed the loop and put those on YouTube. So the students that had the PDF version didn't have the videos. So that was a negative. Most of the students that had the videos really thought the material was very helpful, and the TAs from last fall said that they appreciated it, but we haven't done any hard studies on the iBooks. On the iPad apps, mostly what we're looking there is for changes in workflow and changes in culture. And really we're looking more there for faculty than students. The students are already in the culture. Doing the iPad pilot with a class allows the faculty member the comfortability to know that everybody has that device. And then that allows the faculty member to actually modify and grow in that realm. We did do some work on some of the other projects. It's probably not that unusual if you're using a technology-enhanced active learning classroom and you don't have any training on active learning, you don't do very well. If you know active learning, you do really well. That wasn't, could have guessed that one. And we're still in the middle of doing the studies on the JanX open courses. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you have any difficulty in your bandwidth when you went to high definition videos?
We did not, but we do have problems whenever, most universities by this point have really good coverage of Wi-Fi, but often what you may not have is density. If you didn't notice, whenever we did the OU survey, it actually turns out that our students have 2.4 devices in the classroom. So what we're building out currently is on every new build out, we're trying to go to 3 devices. So we need to get the density. Our larger classrooms and most of our recent builds, let's say over the last 2 years, have the density. And so the high definition is not a problem. Where high definition may be a problem is the iBook. If it gets over 2 gigabytes, that's really too much, right? So in some cases, we have another book that we just put all of the videos in iTunes U. That's a better repository for high definition video, but in the iBook, it just has links to that. And of course, on an iPad, that would be a seamless conversion. You click one, it takes you directly to the other app. You can go right back to where you were. But on the videos that we have in the iBooks, they're at the highest resolution that a Retina display iPad needs, but they're not really, really high res. But then again, you won't know that, right? So we brought the resolution a little bit back from where we shot it, but it is sufficient for a Retina display iPad.
My question is directed towards the use of sophisticated demonstrations as well.
Those, I would say the one where we would be looking at those is actually Janex. Those were high quality videos, most of them long. In the case of the video course, you'd have a lot of traffic at one time, 8,000 people. We haven't had a big problem with that. If the person is in a location where, so like on campus, no problem, right? I can stream it from my office computer, I can stream it in class, no problem. We have had some problems with those demos, and I think this is something that we need to consider is the digital divide being bandwidth. So if somebody is in a rural area, if somebody goes home for the weekend and wants to view the content, they may have a problem there. So one of the nice things about iBooks, if the videos can be put in, is that it takes it with them. So if they go home, they still have it. Another option to look at in the near future is something called common cartridge. So let's say you build out a course in your learning management system. A couple of the learning management systems are starting to build out their common cartridge. And there was a development at the Open Ed conference last fall where a coder built out an app to take that common cartridge and turn it into an ebook. So if somebody has to go home and doesn't have broadband but needs to do homework or needs to look at a video, they can download everything, put it in their tablet, go home, and they don't need the broadband. So there are some solutions for that. But on campus, we've never had any problems with the bandwidth of high quality video. Yes, sir.
Quality. It's just, let me take a publisher's viewpoint here.
Right.
You write an iBook and you look at iBooks, and half of them are crap. Let's face it, right? And there's no editor involved. There's no protection for quality.
Yeah.
And a student, especially, is not going to be able to judge when it's crap and when it's quality. And I think that's something that this whole section of teaching now, I think we're running towards it, and we're not worried enough about editors, let's put it like that.
I think I don't have Wi-Fi. I think that's there's a couple of things on that one. First of all, the quality issue is a legitimate issue. Yeah. You get me in? Okay. Just janex.ou.edu. So I think that's a good question. Now, quality of the content versus access. Those are two separate questions, right? And I think especially when you're looking at science books, you have students that are choosing not to buy the book for the first 4 weeks, seeing if they can make it through exam 1, to make that choice. But almost everybody who's teaching a science course or a math course or any of those high-priced book courses knows that if you don't have the content day 1, you've already signed it. You're out. Right? So access versus quality. I think when you look at the quality, you've got a couple of things going on. First of all, OER is still at a very young age because, you want to get paid for what you do, right? And the open education resources up to, I'd say almost a year or two ago, weren't a full textbook. They were just pieces. I developed for this course and I put that on.
If you just log, if you put in your math password there.
My Mac? Okay. Nope. So I think we're still at a point where the quality is getting better and better. I think that crowdsourced, like ChemWiki out of UC Davis, is one way to keep improving that. I think the other is by not looking at one source. So if we look at, and what I was trying to get to is the chemistry course. Wow, I've had 101 comments since I got on here last. So if we look at the content, there's another question of quality, which is when you have an editor and when you have an author, you will hear, again, that editor and that author. Now, where OpenStax is doing a great job is they're bringing in other people to preview. So I'd say OpenStax is doing it the correct way. What they did was they hired people from publishing to help make these books. If you notice here, I have 3 different sources, right? So we have Wikipedia, OpenStax College, and again, I think they're the one we need to be looking at. They're the one that's doing it right. And UC Davis ChemWiki, again, a really great site. It has lots of chemistry content, and it's wiki-sourced. You contact them, you can get access, but unlike Wikipedia, only those people that they give access. So this is a non-open wiki, right? So think about it the way that you could go on, and if you see something that's wrong, you go in and you help them. You contact the faculty out of UC Davis, and send them an email, and you work on it. One of the comments that I got on this course, and so I'm going to validate what you were saying, is that what I perceive to be some of my older students, mainly from the way they wrote their comments, which is as a formal letter, versus text. That's how I try to tell the difference between the age groups. They didn't like the fact that it was mashed together. Well, the truth is, it is mashed together. I tried to contact some publishers to get content to put in here. No go. Not going to give you the content, not even a chapter. We'll give you 2 paragraphs, we'll give you 5 paragraphs, normal standard thing, right? So I spent all Christmas finding Wikipedia. When I polled the OU students, they didn't have a problem with it. But I think that's also generational. For them, going to different sources and finding information, they're perfectly comfortable with. Them hearing multiple voices is not a problem. Where it also has brought up a learning opportunity.
That's in essence the problem. They're not in a position to judge. Is this good or is this bad?
Well, I guess let's step back first. I didn't put anything on there that I didn't read first.
Fine, but
Okay. So therefore, there was a peer review process. And sadly, you can say that there's an argument against my own argument, which is I'm the only perfect expert to look at it. Would 8,000 people in the world be learning about alpha keto rearrangements for free if I didn't have that open educational resources?
probably not.
Probably not, right?
If we go towards standard courses,
With a standard course, I think what you do is make sure that you edit it properly and that you look at reliable sources. Sources that Minnesota, you can go there, they have an open book. Their faculty get a small per diem to edit books to peer review. Connections, OpenStax, they are doing a peer review process.
Can I jump into this? Sure. I'm old enough to know when early chemistry books started out, and they were crap, and I can name them. They were wrong, and they were published. So I think that we're looking at something which is, as you probably have put forward, is nascent. I'm pretty sure that those controls will begin to emerge relatively quickly.
That's
Now,
where
the
the
problem
control
is,
comes
let me
from.
finish this, because I didn't interrupt you. All right. Now, what I think I do see, which is of great interest to me, is the cost issue that you have raised. And you You pointed to it when you started talking about 8,000 people being educated, at least to some degree.
To some degree.
And what I have found is the critical point that has to be made is learning how to think more than what the actual fact is. I'm old enough to say that I thought that there were 2 allotropes for carbon for a long, long time. I rest my case. So with respect to what you're saying, yes, there is a problem that has to be addressed, but I believe that it will be addressed.
Well, I'm trying to get to where are these control functions going to come from? A standard book, control function.
Yeah, I think we can talk about this a little bit more. California, UC British Columbia, and OpenStax all have those control issues in hand. Other questions? Yes.
It's kind of related but different, but what if in your field there's like a standard textbook, like the foundation, like a book that you just have to have, like in art, in my field, you have to have the Dillman's Methods book for your social science. You know, it's a classic, all your grad students need it, and that's what they need to read. And if they don't have it in open source, like are there arrangements with publishers or that you could get that on your iPad? And then if it is, then aren't they going to just jack the price up anyway because you're right back where you started? I guess.
Well, first of all, you need to use the course materials you feel are necessary for your course. What I'm saying is we're getting to the point where there is options. The technology's got to the point where we can create our own versions. But if you need something, you need something. Now, I think where the publishers are behind is really seeing the advantages of digital. Advantages of digital to bring in media, to bring in hyperlinking, bring in the self-assessments, to bring in all of these things to really add to the experience. I think they also have a problem with their DRM is a little bit too tight. So you can't share notes. iBooks, I can share what I do in iBooks with somebody else. Students want to be social, both in person and online. But they're going to need to move towards digital, even on some of those classics that haven't been digital. One of the things we have on our campus is Disability Resource Center. When a book has a digital format, we can meet in an accommodation almost instantaneously. And publishers are really great about that to help us when it has a digital format. When it doesn't have a digital format, or it's printed by a press, we've had trouble. And the truth is, with accommodations, again, time is against us, and we need to get that resource to those students as soon as possible. So if you are looking at one of those, even if it goes through a publisher, and even the last book I adopted had a digital version at $127. Students are not going to buy a digital version for $127. A digital book to them should cost $20. They can buy the hottest book right now on any of the platforms for $20, right? So there is that problem, right? But the fact that it had a digital content meant that if I had a student that needed accommodations, that we could accommodate that student almost instantaneously. Other questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Yes.
So, I don't know very much about this, but one of the things that's kind of kept me back from doing much with this pertains to copyright issues. So, for instance, especially with figures, say I want to talk about something to do with the carbon nanotube. If I'm just going to present that in a lecture on a PowerPoint, I wouldn't hesitate to go grab a graphic from Wikipedia or whatever. But if you're going to be offering this up to your students as courseware, then you can't just be stealing somebody's material.
Right.
And then on the other side, if I develop all this stuff, what about my intellectual property? So what are people doing about that?
Well, there's two sides on that. So let's talk about the copyright. In our training for the iBooks, that was one of our big issues, right? If you're going to create this, you need to be careful of that, right? You need to follow proper copyright. Turns out your example of Wikipedia, you could have used that image. But you would have gone all the way back to the source image and make sure that whoever posted that image had given it the right copyright.
Right, but I always tell my students that going to Wikipedia isn't research, and so I think it would be kind of cheesy to steal all my information. Right?
But when trying to piece something together, it is nice. And you got to remember, you think it's cheesy, but they probably don't. And most of the research on Wikipedia says that it's pretty accurate. I think the other part is, you don't have to create the iBook for free. Now, why is our iBook free? We didn't have a one-to-one iPad. And at the time we did our iBook, they did not have the iBooks on Mac. Notice that I was on Mac when I used it. So it's something they brought out last fall. That helps a lot because we have Macs all over campus at OU, so anybody can access it. And pretty soon we'll have iPads they'll be able to check out a library, so they'll have it. So now I could create an iBook and have it for sale because on my campus there will be, in the very near future, the possibility that all students will have access. Now, it may have to come to campus. You may have to check out an iPad in the library, right? But they will all have access to that. And then at that point, right, there is a royalties and there's a standard contract with Apple. So, now, if you go with Connections or Merlot, you choose one. You choose a Creative Commons. Now, on Connections, they like you to use Creative Commons by. That means that anybody can reuse it, remix it, repurpose it, right? But on Merlot, you can pick whatever Creative Commons you would like. They want you to put a Creative Commons on it so you'll know, other people know how to use it, but you could create a CC BY, a CC BY non-commercial, a CC BY non-commercial, non-derivative. You know, some people do that. That turns out non-derivative is probably the one that's, or you could do the wiki one, which is most standard, which is BY, non-commercial, share alike. Which means whatever you create, you also have to share. So you can use my stuff, you can remix it, but you need to share it too. So there's multiple licenses in the Creative Commons that makes it easy for faculty to understand how to protect their material. In some cases, like journal archives, they're not called open educational resources, they're called open access. Because open access journals, you cannot change. They're restricted, right? So they're restricted, but you can access them for free.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
So someone once told me that digital media is a poor substitute for hard copy. I tend to agree with that because I'm a pretty tech-savvy guy. I have an iPad, I have an iPhone, I have Macs and stuff, but I still print out papers to read them, right? And I was just wondering how you get past that because even the students I have today, like in biochem or something, they'll have PowerPoints. They also have an iPad. But they'd rather print out the PowerPoint to read it. So how do we, people still want to have to take a copy to read it.
Yeah.
Right? And it's easier to go through a textbook than it is to keep on tabbing and pressing on your iPad to get through the pages of the textbook.
Again, experimentation and on the front cutting edge. That's what our ones are about, right? So is everybody comfortable to use an iPad for all of that? No. What we see with students is that they need to be able to take notes, right? And so whenever you have, if you don't have the ability to take notes, they're going to have to print it out, right? But that's becoming more and more common. There's more and more resources to do that. And I think it also is one of those things that knowing that there is an annotation, so if it's a PDF, your class lab notes, right, and they want to take notes of your PowerPoints, to know that they can import that, or if you put it up, not as a PowerPoint, but as a PDF, and they can import that into an annotation app, and they can write on it just like they would normally, and then they'll have access to that all the time. There's small cultural changes, right? There's small digital, but again, we're on the cutting edge, and you got to do what is your best learning method.
Do you really think that the technology will get to that point? Like, for example, you use like Pen Ultimate. I use Pen Ultimate too, but I always have a problem with Pen Ultimate recognizing my palm instead of my stylus, right? So I just give up on using Pen Ultimate and print out the app.
Well, we try it again in 2 or 3 years.
Write by hand with the pencil.
Right. So I mean,
it's like one of those things like, we spend millions of dollars trying to figure out a pen that writes in space, but then the Russians would use the pencil, right?
Yeah, but our pencil is
I'm just using that as an example. I mean,
Right.
something seems easier just to write it down with a pencil.
yes.
I have a question following Marvin's question. The idea of this is to be able to have information, free information, and people can have access to that information, right? So when you are talking specifically about one brand, in this case, the brand, you are helping them to build a product for them. So what is your what is the benefit that you have from them, first of all? And second of all, what is going to happen for all those people that doesn't like Mac, for example, I don't like Mac,
So good question. So he's asking, so what is
what I'm
the,
telling you is that you are selling, okay, it's your work, but you are putting Ibook.
right.
A brand to that.
Yeah, let me answer your question. So what is the, thank you. So what is the, if I'm talking about open and open access, then why am I talking about iBooks? And then, what are we getting out of it? Okay, all right. There's disruptive technology. And there's a few companies that are really good at making disruptive technology. There's also a few companies that are really good at making a great user interface. Google, you can go and whatever the new Google thing is online, you know how to use it. You don't have to, somebody didn't have to train you. Apple is very, very similar. Once you learn one Apple product, moving from pages to numbers to iBook Author is not that difficult. It's also a stable platform. The iPad is a stable platform. If anybody in here has iOS 7, I know that all the iOS 7 is the same. I can't. And as the executive director for Center Teaching Excellence, we try to do training on Android. There are multiple versions. I cannot do training on Android because I don't know which version you have. But if you've got an iOS device, I know which version you have. So therefore, there's a couple of things that make Apple the place to start. It's easy to train on. It's easy to train a faculty member that's been teaching for 20 years how to convert their course notes into an iBook. It's a stable platform for them to do that. And if that faculty member will choose to set that as a free, we can also distribute that as a PDF. Now, is that the solution that my center will be training on 2-3 years from now when other companies develop, again, nice, solid user interfaces? Probably not. Will we always be looking at those disruptive technologies like Google, like Apple, to see what other people are going to design? Yes. So what I'd say is, right now, Apple is doing a really good job. Other people will be doing it soon. Okay? Google does a good job, but they haven't made something like iBook Author. I wouldn't doubt that they'll have it soon, and it'll be cloud-based, and it'll be device agnostic.
If I were about my computer, just for your speech, right now I would be in love with Apple because they are doing pretty good things. So why not just to do a Java application that's going over any platform?
Oh, you somebody write the Java application to work on any platform, then we can do it.
Well, there is a program called Blender in Unix. And
Oh, yeah. We looked at that one. Yeah.
And you can just put your file in your website.
We're also, one of the other things that we're doing, we haven't started on, we're going to be looking at web-based. Now that one, again, I come back to trainability. That one, for somebody that's tech savvy, is not that hard to use. It's not something I can train on quickly. There's several other applications where if I had a week, 2 weeks, I could, but 6 hours, no. We're training on iBooks Author in less than 6 hours. And that includes talking about digital content. That includes talking about a whole hour and a half on Creative Commons licensing and copyright, right? So the one you're talking about, it's a trainability issue. Faculty are not going to spend 2 weeks learning to use something. And most aren't tech savvy enough to learn something like that. Now, that interface is going to get better. And one day I'll be able to train on that type of application.
Yes. Given that in interactive class you can keep track of all comments or discussions, are there any potential precautions or issues that may arise in terms of privacy?
Good question. So in an open course like this, you have thousands of students making comments. Any student can report any comment. The interesting thing is we almost see none of that. The first week there was a little bit of complaining because it was the first week, and with every new technology, there's a hiccup. I heard you might have had a little hiccup with Canvas, right? So there's a little hiccup, right? And so there were some comments, about that hiccup. But after that, I haven't seen anything. We have a course on evolution. We have a course on fracking. In there, we're not seeing any disruptive, non-civil comments. So they're taking it very seriously. My students get upset. My open students get upset when they don't get a good grade on the quiz. They're taking the courses seriously. They're helping each other. It's a community. It's nice. I haven't seen that, but there are precautions to that. Both the technology company will search for those things. They have a filter system, but also anybody, students or myself, if they see something that's disruptive, they can hit report, and it gets taken off usually within minutes. Yes, ma'am.
I have a less technical question. You've really been a great resource for the chemistry department for very long. I was wondering, what kind of incentive is there for a department without a university-wide initiative like the one initiative to actually make these kinds of changes in their courses?
Well, I think there's a good question. So the question is, what's the incentive for a department that's not got the whole university-wide initiative going on?
Specifically from the chemistry.
For the chemistry side. So if we think about chemistry, it's a STEM field. In the STEM field, we're losing underrepresented. So anything that we can do that it can engage students and that can increase learning and can increase student success rate, every chemistry department in the U.S. should be done. Now, you have to weigh that versus all the other demands on faculty, right? It's not like we have 120 hours a week to work. We just have 60 or 70 or 80 or 90, but not 120. So that's something we need to be looking at, right? We need to be looking at the research on active learning, multiple formats of active learning, collaborative, cooperative, whichever way you want to look at that, is they increase student success rate. The idea on flip, here's the great thing about flipping your class. When you flip your class, you've just doubled your class. Because a flipped class has exactly the same seat time, but now has content outside. So you got double the instructional time. All the research shows that it's successful. And it's a no-brainer why it is. Also, if you think about Auburn's chemistry department, I'm sure you have an arch rival that has a chemistry department, chemistry, biochemistry, that you would love to steal those best students away from. Right? So, down the road, down there at Alabama, right, let's say they start to use technology that students find interesting, but Auburn's not. Where are the students going to go? Well, unless they're not hard, Auburn, whatever. Yes.
Definitely it's very amazing to find the textbook and a reading. That's really good. So, my question is, in a lot of courses that we have the iPhone, like so that's the Samsung.
It does work with the iPhone, so iOS 7, but the iBooks does not work with Samsung, but that's why we put it out as PDF.
Oh, yeah.
Under the license, if you use iBook Author and you're giving it away, you can distribute it as a free PDF as well. And so the students can download the PDF, there's an app in Android that you can use. There's an app in the Windows tablet that you can use to read and annotate and do almost everything you would do. It won't have the integrated video, but then, like I said, it's one of those things where then we put the videos in YouTube or a similar site so they can see it.
So the digital version, for example, the file speed is free.
Right. Right.
Okay, let's bring this to a close. Thank you everyone for extending the acceptance.
Appreciate it.